Hey, I'm Rob Murphy with Vervaeck Human Capital Solutions, and I'm here today to talk to you about the 3 traps to avoid in your job search. I've been a job hunter myself, and the last time was 2020, and it was a bad feeling. Now, I was employed at the time, which was a blessing, but needed to make more money, and I was looking to find ways to do that. And I remember feeling a sense of urgency, desperation, some fear of the unknown, and then a lot of frustration because I was applying to jobs, and even in jobs where I was offering to work for 100% commission, I was still getting declined. So that's not great for your hunt. That's not great for your self-confidence. It was a tough time. And of course, for me, that road ultimately led to me starting a small business. And 5.5 years later, thank God, we still exist. We've merged with Passion HR in year 5, which was great. But I'm here today to talk about you and your job search. The 3 traps you need to avoid in your job search are bitterness, misalignment, and casting a wide net. So, first of all, we've all watched Netflix or other streaming documentaries about corporate greed and what's wrong with businesses. We've all seen posts all over LinkedIn about what's wrong with businesses and what's wrong with hiring managers and what's wrong with hiring processes. And I get it. I relate, but at the same time, that's not going to help you land your next job. And the reality is, in your job search, you're not dealing with Bernie Madoff. You're not dealing with some corporate billionaire who is trying to rob you blind or ignore you or hurt you. You're dealing with people who have stressful jobs of their own, who are trying to meet the demands and expectations that their companies have placed on them. And it's a very personal process. It's not something where you need to go in feeling like that the employer, the company is your enemy, or that companies in general are your enemy. I understand the feeling of frustration. I understand feeling lost in the shuffle, but you're going to have to focus on what you can control. And if you allow yourself to become bitter, you're going to have a miserable job search. But I would urge you to resist the temptation to spend too much time kind of wallowing in that. Obviously, when you have your frustrations, you're going to vent. I vented a lot to my wife, to people I know and trust. I would urge you, though, not to vent in public places, not to go make a big post on LinkedIn about what's wrong with employers and the hiring process. You know, that's great for dopamine and interactions and people saying preach and making you feel better about yourself, but it's not going to land you your next job. And it's not endearing you to the people who are on the other end of this spectrum making hiring decisions, who are experiencing their own different types of stress. And, you know, they're worried about losing their job. They're worried about getting their job done. They're worried about hiring the right people for their company to help their company succeed. So I would encourage you to focus on controlling what you can control. Vent in a controlled way to people that you know and love and trust, and then maintain a controlled public presence of being systematic, being thoughtful, and taking the next steps to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish. So bitterness is certainly the first trap to avoid in your job search process. The next is misalignment. So we all have opinions of ourselves and what we're capable of doing. And I wish I had $1 for every time I've ever heard somebody say, well, I haven't done this, or it's not on my resume, but I know I'm capable of it. I just need somebody to listen to me and understand I'm capable of it. I get that, but here's the reality. If it's not on your resume, nobody believes you can do it. And you're going to have to find a job in one of 2 ways. One is going to be through your network, through people that you know, asking for help. Hey, I'm looking. Here's what I'm looking for. Do you know anybody? Maybe I can talk to. That's going to be the first part of your job search process. It needs to be, is to reach out to people that you know, whether they really are in positions of influence or not, and just approach them from a place of honesty and say, here's what I'm looking for. I need a job. Do you know of anybody I can talk to? And start there. Most people will not know anyone you can talk to, but somebody will, and you can start some good conversations that way. Now, in the conversations that result, you may be able to have a situation where you say, hey, I know you, I know your business, here's what I can do. Because you already know me, you can see that I could accomplish these things that you need accomplished in your business. You're never, though, going to be able to have that conversation when you're applying for a job online, when you go to a job fair, when you're reaching out to people you barely know or kind of know on the edges of your network for help. You're not going to be able to have those conversations about, it's not on my resume, but I could do it. When I say misalignment, what I mean is this: your thoughts, opinions, and expectations of yourself are going to be not aligned with the thoughts, opinions, and expectations of someone who is looking at your resume, filling a job that it's their job to fill for their company. And if you want to have a productive job search application process, you're going to need to align your expectations with what's on your resume and with what the job market looks like. You're not going to be able to go in and have conversations where you talk someone into believing that you can do something, because the people who are looking to fill a specific job at their company are looking for candidates who have done that job before, unless it's an entry-level position. And one of the greatest difficulties for people who are later in their career on the job search is to understand that, yes, if you can get a job doing what you've been doing on your resume, then you probably will be treated with seniority and tenure and years of experience. But if you're seeking a job that is not something you've done on your resume, you need to prepare yourself to be treated like an entry-level employee, because in that different world, that's how you're going to be seen by employers and by hiring managers. Is that fair? Probably not, but there's nothing fair about a job search, just like there's nothing fair about life. So I would urge you to, again, accept it for what it is, don't be bitter about it, and come up with your system and your plan to succeed. The final trap to avoid is the very common notion of casting a wide net. And in a sense, that's good. You do want to create a lot of connections. You want to have a lot of conversations, but the focus is not really on casting the widest net possible. It's not about applying for as many jobs as possible. I've heard people say, oh, and we've seen in LinkedIn posts, right? I've applied for 10,000 jobs in the last 30 days. That's not it, folks. That's not the answer. What you need to be doing is developing a systematic approach to find jobs that actually fit you, and then you need to pursue them with a little bit more intention and a little bit more focus. So instead of applying for 10,000 jobs, look for your top 10, 15, 20, 30 jobs that really fit you, that the person who's hiring that role is going to look at your resume and see that you're a candidate for this role. So find you 10, 15, 20, 30 of those, apply, follow up, be old school about it. Call the company. You don't have to do anything crazy, but after you apply, call them up, send an email, do whatever you can do to get in touch with a real person and say, hey, I applied for this job. I'm not just a random applicant. I think that I'm a good fit. I'd love to talk to you if you're interested. I hope you have a great day. Do that. That's all you need to do. And then once you're in the interview process, be focused, be prepared. All the cliche, old school interview advice you've ever heard is accurate. Be prepared. Understand what you're there for. Dress nicely. Things have changed in the last 25 years in a lot of ways, but what hasn't changed is that when someone is hiring for their company, they want to have a feeling of confidence that you're going to show up well, you're going to show up your best self, and you're going to show up prepared to get the job done. And the way you present yourself in an interview still carries absolutely every bit as much weight as it ever has. And no, you don't need to wear a tuxedo or a three-piece suit, but you need to be dressed at least in business casual attire with an understanding of the job you're applying for, the company's history, the people you're talking to, what their jobs are, and what they're trying to accomplish this week in their job. The more empathy you have, the more understanding you have, the better those conversations are going to go. I hope that something in here has been helpful for you. If not, feel free to delete this video. And if it has, then I'm glad. I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have a great job search.